You could be the best lover in the world, last for hours, great. What happens when your partner doesn't trust you anymore? What happens when you have no idea how to actually navigate an argument with her?
The most common thing that slowly strangles a relationship over years is this build-up of resentment, the inability to communicate what's there.
Both partners are miserable. Both partners, they've lost trust, not satisfied sexually. Is there a way for me to be radically, authentically me and have even more influence in the bedroom and in my relationship? When you learn how to see someone in that way, that is your game changer. That's what brings trust back online and suddenly makes intimacy and sex available again.
So what does that do to when a man is like really there?
I would say,
So welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. And today we're going to dive into a topic which I think every man wants to know: how he can be an exquisite lover, how he can be a great lover, how he can be the sort of lover that women desire to be with and long for and think about many years after they've been with you. And today's guest is a man who I've admired for many, many years, taking in his videos and his Instagram content, a man who's deeply practiced in the world of spiritual intimacy, you know, the yoga of intimacy, the work that is so deeply important to us men to dive into for ourselves, our relationship, and for the world. I have with me today Justin Patrick Pierce. How are you doing today, Justin?
I'm doing great, David. I really appreciate you bringing me on.
Oh man, it's a real pleasure. And I thought I'd start with a bit about your journey, because I generally find as teachers, when we become teachers, it's not because we were experts to start with. It's usually because we felt there was something for us to learn. So I wonder, what has been your journey when it comes to creating deep intimacy and being a great lover?
I had two parallel paths when I was younger. One was my secret life. When I was about 10 years old, I really got involved in meditation, lucid dreaming. I had a big family at that time, 7 people living in a house. So I would lock myself in the basement and turn off the lights and meditate for hours at a time. This was kind of like my private world. I've been doing it since I was 10. And I always thought that part of me and my spirituality would always be something I would keep secret. It wasn't meant to be shared with others. Another path of me was getting into fitness, was getting into rock bands, was getting into a lot of trouble. And I had some girlfriends in high school, but by the time I hit college, I really became interested in like, okay, how do I get chicks? How do I get girls? And at that time, like the pickup arts scene started to really blow up. And I met someone like, hey, you got to check out this book. So I'm like looking through all this stuff, like, this is interesting. And I just kind of like spun into that world for a little bit. And I was like, all right, let's learn these skills. Because I wasn't naturally I wasn't the most charismatic. I wasn't the most funny. I wasn't the most good looking. Like, I didn't have these attributes that naturally made me the guy. So I was like, let me develop some of these skills. And I did. And I started dating a lot of different women. And I was like, this is nice. But at a certain point, it started to feel really empty to me. At a certain point, I just remember this one moment, waking up with a girl in my bed and looking over, and I was just kind of like, who is this person? And it just didn't feel good anymore. It felt empty. And that was the moment I realized, like, maybe there's more to this relationship stuff than just getting numbers and getting laid. Maybe there's something that's actually more important, because I'm starting to realize maybe I'm actually not really serving these women that I'm sleeping with or dating temporarily. And maybe I'm not serving myself. And so it just so happened after years, I'd met my wife, London. We met in Santa Monica, California, in an Equinox gym, both trainers there. And we had no interest in dating. She was immediately like red flags this moment she met me. I was still like 24 and doing the LA thing. And we just became friends. We started talking a lot. And then suddenly we just fell in love. And she was the one who introduced me into sacred intimacy and sacred sex. And when she first brought up the idea, I was like, this is stupid. Who needs to study sex and relationship? How silly. I don't need this. I had a big ego around it. But she was like, listen, I'll pay for your tuition for this event. You just come. I went. And what blew my mind was for the first time, that place I used to experience on my own for all those years in meditation and lucid dreaming. Now suddenly I was standing in front of a woman, and everything I'd cultivated over those years was suddenly now applicable and appreciated, and actually something that would deepen her trust in me, deepen her pleasure, deepen her sexual experience. And suddenly it was like I found the thing I was looking for. And that was the key moment when those two worlds that seemed very separate fused into one experience, and I'd never looked back since.
Wow. Well, I can really resonate with the pickup world as a world I also found myself in my kind of early 20s, and wanting that desire, isn't it? Like, I want to be a better man, but not so much I want to be a better man. There may be some of that underneath the hood, but it's I want more women. I want more of this feminine energy that I deeply desire, that feels
Yeah.
like it's been elusive to me for our lives. Um, and it's funny you say about going to the first event. Like, who needs to learn about sex? It's such a common attitude for men, isn't it? That we believe we should know how to do things that we really don't know how to do.
Yeah, and I find that way is common with relationship in general. I've been in this world now for 16 years in a committed relationship, practicing sacred intimacy and studying it deeply. Um, and one common thread that I see in the thousands of people I work with is this attitude, whether it's a man or woman. Oh, I know how to do relationship. I know what relationship is about. I've been in them before. I'm a pro. I'm an expert. I know how to do this. But when in fact, both partners are miserable. Both partners, they've lost trust. Both partners are not satisfied sexually. They're still looking outside the relationship to get their needs met. And they feel like committed partnership is a kind of prison that's just not going to deliver on that promise. But at the same time, there's a lot of resistance to learning or being taught until there's a crisis,
Mm,
until we get to the point where we go, oh man, this is screwed. And I need some intervention here if I'm going to either save this relationship or change this pattern that I've been in for decades. And that's typically the moment where people will come and start exploring the work.
yeah. Mm. What do you think that resistance is? That resistance to learning, the resistance to trying something new, coupled with, I guess, there's part of the belief that they already know how. Like, what do you think's underneath that resistance?
I know what was underneath it for me
Mm,
was my ego,
mm,
was I'm not broken, you know. It works. I know how to get girls, I know how to get laid, and when I get into the bedroom, I know what I'm doing. Why would I want anyone meddling with my strategies? And also, I think back then, my strategies were somewhat covert and secret, like a secret agent. Like pickup arts, you're not gonna like broadcast that you're doing that, or like your techniques and your routines that you're studying here. That's your secret shit. And if people found out, it's like the magician telling the audience how he's doing the trick.
mm.
You don't want people to find out. So I think up to that point in my life, it was like a covert operation where I'm developing all of these things in secret, because at the end of the day, they were tricks. They were a facade that I had to perpetuate or keep up in order for them to keep working for me. And this whole idea about pickup arts being a facade that you have to keep up, it really started to hit me when I was using these techniques to keep certain women around. There's a certain point in my life I was dating 13 women at the same time.
Wow.
And I don't say that to impress anybody. I say that to impress upon what I've learned later in my life is that the craving, the desire for more, more, more is insatiable. And you think you'll finally be satisfied once you have 13 women. And guess what? You're still not. It's still not enough. You're still miserable. And so the deeper work is to go in and actually investigate and understand that part of ourselves that is never satisfied, that is eternally unsatisfied, and actually start to heal that part inside of us. And that's the primary focus of my work. But as I was on that journey, there were several women in my in my field that were part of that, that I noticed the moment I stopped doing the certain technique, if I stopped negging them, if I stopped behaving a certain way, if I stopped doing this certain technique, their interest was gone.
Mm,
And after several months, like a few of them I really started to like and have a relationship with, and I was like, I really want to get to like know this woman. Like this feels good. I want to spend more time with her. And the moment I would show like more of this softer side, she'd be like, "Oh, I'm not interested anymore. Okay, I'm gonna," and then I'd have to bring back these old techniques. And I was like, oh, I could see how someone gets caught in this because I need to do these techniques to keep this particular type of woman around. And I got to a certain point where I was like, I'm sick of the bullshit. I'm sick of the facade. Is there a way for me to be radically, authentically me and s- have even more influence in the bedroom and in my relationship and sex? And that's what led me to the work I teach today.
mm, yeah. And this is when you talk about kind of techniques and strategies, right? Because when men come to thinking about being a great lover, being a great partner, they immediately think of like I said, performance. They can upkeep, like you mentioned, techniques, even stamina. If we're thinking about just purely sexual intimacy, where do you think that instinct comes from to go towards those sorts of things, and why do you think that that's kind of the incorrect starting point for us?
I imagine that a lot of men would like to have more confidence in the bedroom.
Mm,
I know a lot of men who struggle with erectile dysfunction. I know a lot of men who struggle with um, ejaculating early, being very quick. I know a lot of men who've heard complaints from women who don't feel impressed or satisfied by their performance. Those tend to be some of the hottest pain points for the men who start to go looking for help is they're experiencing that. And I work with a lot of men who fall into those categories. So I think reestablishing confidence around their sexuality becomes a big one. And some men might feel, well, if I can't satisfy her with my penis, maybe I could find other techniques or other strategies to satisfy her as well. And if I build a repertoire of all of these skills in the bedroom, that's going to be the thing that makes me unique. That'll be the thing that gives me confidence with all the women or any woman that I'm with. And that'll be the confidence that keeps her around. And there are some techniques that can be helpful in these situations. But the thing that my work explores is not just these techniques around multiple orgasm or internal orgasm or lasting longer. It's part of it and it's useful. But we're taught that's scratching the surface because you could be the best lover in the world, have the best sex in the world. Like you can last for hours. Okay, great. What happens when your partner doesn't trust you anymore? What happens when your partner is constantly criticizing you and you don't feel seen in the relationship or respected or appreciated? What happens when you have no idea how to actually navigate an argument with her? You have no idea how to repair to even bring sex back on the menu after there's been a fight or a loss of trust. Those turn out to be the most important skills a man can learn is how do you actually deal with conflict, challenge, rupture, and not only just heal it through talking about it like a therapy session, but how do you actually work through it in a way that preserves polarity, which is sexual attraction? And in the midst of a fight or an argument, the two of you know how to get back together such that you want to touch and make love in that next moment. That's the unique feature of the body of work I teach is how do we get there? Because over the many years I've done this, that's by far the most important technique or skill set we can learn as men.
mm. And many men will hear this and go, Justin, that's not how it works, Like, you know, bedroom techniques are important, but like what you talk about there in terms of coming back from conflict can feel, I'm kind of thinking of myself when I was like 27, coming back from conflict and like wanting to touch and be close together in the next moment, not just next week or
Right.
a couple of days' time, would almost feel quite foreign to a man, listening to this.
Absolutely. And if you told me this was an option when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't have believed you. This sounds wild. But when you learn how to step into conflict and how to bring presence and clarity and equanimity and actually love and see your partner in that moment, you can heal the conflict instantaneously to the point where you're wanting to touch your partner and your partner is wanting to touch you within seconds or minutes, let alone a week. And once you learn how to do this in your relationship, you start to experience a relationship where neither partner is building up resentments over time. We all know the feeling where we could feel our partner is a little cold, they're mad, they're resentful, they're giving us the cold shoulder. I'm fine, nothing's wrong. And you feel that and you go, most people imagine that's just typical part of long-term relationship. It is not. You can actually use these skills such that there's no more resentment in your relationship at all. And the moment you see something's off, you learn how to step into that moment, resolve it completely, and move into the next moment with no resentments in your relationship. Every relationship I had before this one, there were those resentments. It was part of the dynamic, it was to be expected. Today, my wife and I have zero tolerance for resentments or any kind of hidden coldness. We learn to step right into that fire. And when you learn how to do that, that's when you become a truly masterful lover.
Mm. I hear this resentment piece. I know the Gottmans talk about it, and I see it for myself is like the real destroyer of relationships. Resentment. So people often think about infidelity, which causes a lot of harm and even financial issues. But like, I feel like from what I see, the most common thing that slowly strangles a relationship over years or even decades is this buildup of resentment, the inability to communicate what's there and even feel what's there. That, like you said, the sensitivity to feel what's going on in a partnership. What do you think that teaches us, especially men, that is like an okay way for us to be in relationship or an okay way for us to exist in relationships?
Well, a lot of men, on average, seem to be wired in a way where they're very avoidant when it comes to emotions.
Mm.
They're avoidant in feeling their own emotions. I'm fine. I don't need to feel that. When their partner brings an emotion, oh, this is unpleasant. Let's make this go away. Let's fix this. What's the problem? Let's solve it. Or leave me alone. Not now. We're constantly pushing emotions away inside of ourselves and within our partner. And what that does is it makes our partner and us feel unseen. And when we are unseen, means misunderstood, not appreciated, not respected, don't feel love, that's the moment the resentment starts accumulating. And it's in those small little moments of going unseen where it's, I don't feel seen, or in our partner, I don't feel seen. So seeing is the primary experience that's critical in intimate relationship. It's the fundamental feature of intimacy that is something different than sex. You can have sex with anybody and not be seen and not see them. You can still have sex. It's not dependent upon sex. But if you want long-term relationship to work, there must be an experience of a mutual seeing that's happening between you and your partner. Because when you feel seen and they feel seen, there's an experience of love and trust that's there. And when you don't feel seen and they don't feel seen, there's a lack of love and trust. That's where the resentments build. So for many couples, the starting point is, how do I compassionately, lovingly, and selflessly see my partner's experience without trying to fix them, without trying to change them, without trying to defend my position in this situation? And when you learn how to see someone in that way, that is your game changer. That's what brings trust back online and suddenly makes intimacy and sex available again, no matter how long you've been together.
And that what you say there about being seen, I imagine that a core component of seeing ourselves, even our emotional experience, and also our partner's experience, is presence, and being able to be present with both our own experience and our partner's experience. What are some of the ways that you see that men sabotage their own presence or lose presence or The word has escaped me. Like I was going to say abdicate presence, because it's almost something we just like drop and run away from.
In my work, I use the terms alpha and omega to
Mm.
describe our orientation. Do we orient more towards consciousness, kind of the mind state, we could say, or do we orient more towards omega, which is more the heart, emotional part of our experience? And most men, on average, tend to be a little bit more alpha than omega, meaning they're finding themselves more in their head. And when we have more of a relationship with consciousness, what we tend to do is we tend to spend more time in the space of what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen a few years from now. Let me plan, and strategize to make sure that my future is secure and everything's going to go well. What happened in the past? This is why some men become obsessed with like war and history and like World War II and Vietnam and like all of that. Men get sucked into the History Channel. It's again that other feature of like finances, stock market, Wall Street, predicting, investing, saving. What happened in the past? History. And so the more alpha you are, the more you're living not in this present moment, but on instead this timeline that's spanning future and past. And what's beautiful about it is that's a gift because your children who aren't capable of doing that well, if you have a partner who doesn't really live that way and isn't doing that very well, the gift you offer is I can see 10, 20 steps ahead into the future, and I'm going to make the decisions that are going to protect our future, investments that are going to protect us, and so on. I'm aware of the past, so we're not going to make the mistakes of the past.
Mm.
So that's the gift of alpha, is the ability to not be in the present and be in the future and past. But the problem is our omega family and lovers who omega is our children. You know, our children, especially when they're young, they're not living up there in that timeline. They're here in the moment. You know, they're pushing the glass over, it breaks, they're crying. You know, they step on something, they push something over, they're laughing. You know, like they're just one ball of changing emotion in the present moment. I mean, you know, you have a brand new baby, and I'm sure when you watch him play, it's like that level of presence is unbelievable. It's and as someone, I'm sure you practice presence. I practice presence, and I would sit with my 2-year-old daughter and watch her play 3-4 hours. She's present with whatever she's doing without a single interruption. And I'm practicing trying to be as present as her. And I'm like, I can't keep up. This is crazy. Like, oh, what are we going to eat for lunch? You know, like I'm out of the moment. And here she is, just so engaged. So omega is actually the one who's more present than alpha because the child is present. It's just one changing emotion after the next. And women tend to be more biologically adapted because they're the typical one who cares for that child. So their nervous system has to be wired to be just as present and in contact with that child as they raise and care for that child. So women on average have more of that omega quality. And what their experience is like, here we are in this present moment, playing, laughing, crying, caring. Where's dad? Oh, he's off in the future or in the past, and he's not here with us. He's not present with us. And the child starts to feel, my dad's not present. Or the woman starts to feel, my lover's not present. And one of the biggest complaints that I hear from women, and we certainly hear from children as well, my parents aren't present with me. My lover isn't present with me. And so Omega turns to Alpha and says, come be present with me. I need your presence. Your presence. And then Alpha goes, what are you talking about? I'm giving you everything. I'm working so hard. I'm planning our future. I'm making sure we don't repeat the problem. What do you want more of me? I'm giving my love. And they miss each other.
Mm.
And that becomes one of the core fights that, again, builds those resentments where now suddenly sex feels unavailable, uninteresting, because now these two people who are working really hard to love in their unique ways have forgotten how to love each other in the complexities of living and running a household together. So this work also reveals where are we missing each other and how do we get back to actually seeing and feeling in the present moment in a way that nourishes both of us. It's not a compromise. It's actually what both of us need more of to feel fulfilled in our life.
Mm. Mm. And the example you gave there of, come be more present, come be here right now. And him being like, "Oh, but I am here. I am. I hear this so much, and I even look back and the number of times I said this in my life. Like, I am here. I'm standing in front of you. Like, where else am I? I'm here. My body's here. I'm looking at you. I'm listening to you, even. But I couldn't see that my mind was like wandering in the past and the future, the judgments I was having about them, the judgments I'm having about myself, my own ego, all these things were getting in the way, was made a profound impact on the ability to be with and intimate with someone in that moment. And I'd love to hear from your perspective and from what you've seen in working with men, working with couples, what it feels like, what it does to a woman when a man is deeply present with her, like really there with her, listening, truly there with her experience. What does that do to our female partners?
Well, let's paint an image of a moment where this could happen. And let's say she turns to her man and says, I need you present with me. You're never available. You're never here with me. And rather than arguing with her, rather than making a promise you're going to break, instead, you just see her. And it could sound something like, I see how much you really need my presence right now. I see that you're hurting because I haven't been as present with you as you need. I see how deeply you love and everything that you're giving to our child and our family and the sacrifices that takes. I see the way that you love me and you're not giving up on me or the relationship. I see you need me to pause for a moment and spend more time with you and actually see your experience. I see it's hard for you to trust that I'm really here because I'm always distracted by work. Now, those statements suddenly cut through the story, the bullshit, the defense mechanisms, and now you're just seeing the purity of her heart and her experience without trying to defend yourself. And suddenly you crack through that layer of glass that's been growing between you, and she goes, whoa, yeah, that's what I feel. And now you're in a moment of presence. You brought the seer in a way by just seeing the truth of her heart without trying to argue it or fix it. That is presence. So just that act of seeing creates presence on its own. The moment she feels seen, you're going to notice because her breath is going to change. The tension in her body is going to unwind. She might even start to tear up and cry because she's never felt so seen in her whole life. That's how you know you've melted the ice glacier that's been forming. And then on the other side of that, you look at her and you say, get over here. Come here. And you just embrace her. You don't say anything else. You just take a breath with her. And now you've created the bridge between that which could have turned into a fight and an argument. And now that very same moment, you're now embracing, touching. And then from there, that very much can turn into a moment of sex or intimacy. That's the bridge. That's the skill set that changes everything.
And there's a beautiful vulnerability in that as well, into pausing and taking the time to see them and express how you are seeing them. Because even in expressing that, the vulnerability is that one can easily start to create meaning of blame and fault and judgment around ourselves. Like even saying, like, I can see you're carrying so much and you're hurt, you feel neglected. Suddenly, even in saying those words, we can easily attach to, if we're not really present with just the words, we start going further. We add in the blame and shame we start experiencing because we have neglected them. We have not been showing up. We haven't been there for them in that way.
That's correct. It's an ego killing practice. That's why it's a form of yoga. This isn't about creating some super ego, which is what all pickup arts is about. It's creating the superior version of your selfhood that you could be more proud of and egotistical about. This is a spiritual path where we're stepping into the fire. because we realize the ego is the thing that's actually preventing love. It's our selfishness and our self-obsession, our defense mechanisms and fears that are constantly getting in the way of real love. And so we can't experience love while the ego's there. So as you named, the art form of learning how to see in a way that is truly selfless, compassionate, is an art form we can study for our entire lives. Because most people, when they first start off on the IC practice, they might say something like, I see you're pissed off because you're just scheduling too many things in your day. I see you always nagging me. I see you're always in a bad mood and so negative all of the time. Every single one of those is a judgmental statement. Every single one of those is an attack. That's not seeing somebody. That's judging somebody. That's attacking somebody. That's accusing somebody. So we covertly embed our shame and blame into our seeing. And what that starts to reveal to us is like, oh, look at how I'm seeing my partner. No wonder why they're always so defensive around me. And what I want to point out is this IC practice, you're already seeing your partner all the time anyway. Your mind is always generating, oh, I don't like the way that looks. Oh, look at how selfish she is. Or why does she always, oh, I see she's giving the cold shoulder again. You're always seeing her. And the way you see her changes your relationship to her and her relationship to you. What this practice does is it brings consciousness to your seeing. Can your seeing actually become an expression of love that creates love and trust and hotter passion, as opposed to destroying it and dismantling it every day? So we're already doing the seeing. This practice is designed to help us refine our seeing so we can pull the ego, the shame and blame out of it, and it can just become a true gift that serves our partner. And we'll know it's a gift because you'll see it in their eyes, you'll see it in their body, you'll see it in the breath as soon as you make a statement that sounds like a gift to them. But if you're closing them, they're getting madder and badder. The more you see them, you've got work to do.
And it's really interesting as you describe what I was kind of gleaming is in the kind of the attack, the shame is bundled in with the seeing as like a mechanism for us not to have to feel it ourselves. Like if I bundle in that shame of like, oh, you look tired because you're really busy, because you're over scheduling, I can push away the shame I feel around you being too busy and over scheduled. And my responsibility in that might be that I should be taking up more. I should offer more help. Maybe I should have said something to you 2 weeks ago and said, hey, babe, like maybe we should slow down. Maybe we should take a break. Maybe we need to remove some of the things from the household. But I bundle in the shame in there and pass it over to you and treat it as if I'm giving you a useful bit of feedback.
That is absolutely spot on. And so what you just identified there is that you have feelings that you feel aren't being seen or acknowledged, right? Now that's your feeler at play. And whether we're a man, woman, or child, we all have a feeler. I know there's a lot of men out there that don't like to imagine they have a feeler. I was one of them in my early 20s, but men feel just as much as anybody does. And the idea we tell ourselves that we don't is a sickness that needs to be corrected because it creates a lot of dysfunction, emotional dysfunction in men when we imagine we're not supposed to feel or we shouldn't feel. We need to come back in contact with our emotions in an intelligent way. So as you just named that perfect example, in that moment, your feeler's hurt. Your feeler doesn't feel seen. And in fact, that's our biggest resistance to seeing our partner compassionately is, well, they don't see me. Why should I see them? They don't understand me. Why am I going to give them the gift of being seen and understood? They need to see me first. And your partner's feeling the same way. They need to see me first. And it's a stalemate. And so that's why when you learn these practices, the secret is you always have to go first. It's like, well, wait a minute, Justin. If I'm already always going first. And it's so funny because both partners always feels that way. Talk to both partners. Who goes first? I go first. No, I go first. Yeah. It always feels that way. But you have to go first and bring the gift of seeing. And that's the hard part because first your feeler feels unseen. There's something that you need to be seen in or acknowledged in. And when you go unseen, that can feel really hurtful. And that's when it starts coming out sideways.
Mm, yeah, that stalemate so common in relationships across in so many different areas. Like everyone's waiting for the other person. It's like I often call it this like it's adversarial. It's me versus you. It's like this winning, like it's like patriarchy in relationship. I need to win. I need to not lose in this moment or in our relationship. I need to feel like I'm one up, and forgetting that you're a team. You're in a team sport, not an individual sport, and they're your foe.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of the liberating piece is once you develop liberation around desire, which is I understand that's a huge statement that I'm
Mm.
making. It's kind of like the key and focus of a lot of spiritual traditions. But liberating around desire is critical for real freedom and liberating around your emotions. That if you can get to the experience where it's like, I can feel any emotion and it's not a problem. My partner can feel any emotion, it's not a problem. My kid could feel any emotion, it's not a problem. Emotions aren't problems. They're critical information and data that help inform us about what's going on in this moment. And if we try and fix it or correct it or not listen to it, we're losing out on a plethora of invaluable information. But when we start listening to emotions and our partner and over here, we gain a different kind of intelligence. And once we're at peace with emotions, and once we're at peace with desire, that whole adversarial who's trying to win completely goes away. There is no winning or losing anymore because now you're not resisting or afraid of anything. You're not trying power over, power under. You're not playing that game anymore. Now you learn to come together as lovers. And the key is, it's like, as I said, you got to go first. You got to be the leader in making that change in the culture of your intimate relationship. And if you do become the leader, it's a more pleasant way to live. Both partners want something that's more pleasant than the alternative, than what's conventional and casual. But in order to have it, you have to be a leader. You have to enforce something that is truly loving and worthy of trust because the casual way of relating ain't it.
You mentioned liberation of desire. Your liberation of emotions, be able to express your emotions or be okay with whatever emotions are occurring.
Yeah.
Tell me more about liberation of desire.
How many years do you have?
I'm hoping I've still got about 50 or so more.
Yeah, I mean this was the teaching of the Buddha. This was the teaching of the tantrics. They understood something about desire. And let's describe it first like this. When the Buddha came around and he said, the source of your suffering is attachment and desire, right? You desire, thereby you suffer. So we need to get rid of your desire. Stop desiring. Well, how do I do that? A lot of people were teaching that at the time of the Buddha, but no one had a specific practice that could really help a human being achieve that. And that's when the Buddha created Vipassana. Here's the technique. You're going to sit, you're going to be still, you're going to be aware, you're going to feel sensitively the sensations happening moment to moment to moment, and you're not going to react. And if you train your nervous system to just be completely aware, completely sensitive, and to not react, that develops equanimity. You actually train your nervous system to stop biting your nails, not by telling yourself, stop biting your nails, brain, from actually just sitting, feeling the sensation that causes you to bite your nails, and just being at peace. I allow. I allow whatever this feeling is. That is real emotional and mental strength. The capacity to not react to the subtle sensations happening in your nervous system. This is where you gain true agency over your nervous system. And we stop becoming just balls of reactivity that are just reacting this way. And we call it us, but it's not us. It's just a chain reaction of subtle sensations happening throughout the nervous system. Vipassana was the first practice that taught a human being how to become still, feel, and through equanimity, start to chip away and break away at the reactive patterns and their attachment and desire. So, what is equanimity? Equanimity is feeling this moment exactly as it is and saying, I allow this moment to be just as it is. Now, some people hear that word equanimity and they think it means, well, I'll feel happy, I'll be peaceful, I'll feel good. And that's a slight misunderstanding of equanimity. Because in equanimity, you could feel terrible. You could be in extreme pain or frustration, agitation. So, equanimity is not a state. Equanimity is an attitude of I allow whatever this state or this emotion or this moment is, I allow it to be. And thereby there's this kind of surrender that happens in relationship to life, relationship to the moment. This is the key. Without this part, we can't truly liberate. That was the key discovery. Now in sexual yoga, what we do recklessly, crazily, is we bring back fire, which is desire. That's why our book is called Playing with Fire. Because now with this understanding, now we're saying, well, let's bring back sex. Let's bring back pleasure. Let's bring back intimacy and all these other. But wait a minute, what about the teaching on equanimity? What about I allow? Because what is desire? Desire is I want. I want you to come closer. I want to kiss you. I want to climb on top of you. I want you to climb on top of me. So there's now wanting brought back in the picture. But those two things are complete opposites. I allow this moment to be as it is. I want this moment to be different than it is. They cannot occur at the same time, or can they? That's the paradox of sexual yoga. Is we don't lose this relationship to I allow, but we start exploring the I want of desire. Why do we do that? When both partners are in I allow, truly I allow, you become like a monk or a nun. You become celibate. There's no desire in you anymore. There's no need for sex or craving or money or all of these things. You shave your head and you put on some robes and you're good, and you walk that path. But intimate relationship is not that. You could have two people living a perfectly I allow state and they can love each other. They could be best friends and partners, but there's no passion happening there. Because passion is, I want you. I want you closer. I want you to tear off my clothes. I want to tear off your clothes. That I want, what we learn through sexual intimacy is actually an expression of love, not just selfishness. And that's the alchemy we're doing here, is how does your desire become a pure expression of unconditional love as opposed to an expression of selfishness? Because for all of us, we start out as desire and I want is just for selfishness. I want to get laid. I want to have an orgasm. I want more money. I want more fancy clothes. I want a bigger house. I want a nice car, right? Like it's all self-centered. In this, we're learning, can I use my want as an expression of unconditional love to those I serve? And we experience this all the time. I want a better life for my child. I save this money not for me. I don't need anything. I save that so my child can have a future that I didn't have or experience childhood that I didn't get to have, right? I want my woman to feel safe, right? So I want becomes an expression of unconditional love, and you learn how to bring that through your sex and in the bedroom. Now we're starting to play the game of sexual yoga, where our sexual expression actually becomes a form of liberation for us and our partner.
So beautifully explained in the, the I allow, this is, and I want, and the expression, of loving someone. It becomes this, it's like a selfless act that you may enjoy and get pleasure from, but it comes from a place that feels, like you said, it comes from a place of love, of not of how do I get, how do I take, how do I conquer, but how do I serve? How is love using me as an instrument in this moment between me and you, in this moment here and now?
Yes. And as you said that, it's like when we develop that skill and our want becomes an expression of selfless love, we gain more pleasure than we ever thought was possible.
Mm.
When the giving of our desire in service of love is our primary motive, the pleasure we receive in return is tenfold. So much greater than the pleasure we tried to kind of scrounge and desperately get when we were selfishly, I want, I want, I want, I want, I want. The moment we make this transformation, we are taken care of, but we're taken care of by not putting our attention on ourselves, without obsessing on ourselves, that our love and our effort, our consciousness just becomes a gift in service of other. It's the highest form of purpose.
And that feels like it feels like a long journey from I want my desires filled right now and I'm going to use some covert way to get what I want, to love you being an instrument of the ever flowing existence of love that's in your relationship.
For me, it took probably a decade. And for those I work with now, my goal is to make it way faster for them than it was for me. To save them all the mistakes and the pitfalls. And the truth is, this expression of deep purpose and unconditional love, I believe, lives inside of every single one of us. And it's truly not something that's far away in a distant future. It's truly inside of each and every one of us right now. Are we willing to feel it, to become present with it, to express it? And if we are willing, we can have that right now. We don't have to wait 10 years like I did. That is available. And so everything that I teach in my practices are about how do we make that happen right now? Not next week, not next month, right now. Let's do it. You ready?
Mm,
And as long as both partners say, yeah, let's do it, it's possible.
mm, mm. And it's less of a because I guess as I said, it's less of a destination. It's more of an experience, a moment by moment experience. Like one can be in the state of I want my desires selfishly, and lean into a practice where we come up and we go, oh, actually, this is my desire. That's a pure service of love to you and us and our relationship. Have that experience together, and maybe come back, maybe not right back down to the like selfish. I want, though, part of the human experience is wanting things often, but like peppering those experiences on a regular basis for a relationship, I imagine I've seen, is really transformational to a couple, to a man, to a woman.
It's one of the greatest transformations that we could make because no matter how successful you become, how much money you earn, how big your house is or fancy your car is, if you're coming home to a war zone because you and your partner don't know how to relate, that's a very frustrating existence, especially because you think, hey, I made it. I ought to be happy, but I'm not. My household is a war zone. Coming home to a household that feels sacred, that feels sexy, that feels intimately alive and vibrant is one of the greatest riches that we can have in our lives as a man. And so it is available to us. And yeah, from time to time, we're going to stub our toe. And it's all about me and my toe. Other times we're going to be really hungry and it's all about what am I going to eat next? Yeah, we're going to have those very selfish moments. But if we can live not just from that narrow place, but actually feel out into the greater purpose of what I'm here to give while I'm alive before I die. What am I here to create? What am I here to leave behind? And that attitude keeps us in the bigger vision. And that's been true of men for thousands of years, is going out into war and sacrificing life for a greater purpose has been in our DNA, in our ancestors' DNA for a long, long time. And today, even though we don't have the same kind of wars with swords and axes and shields and arrows and all of that, there's a part in every modern man who feels like I'm working out hard. I've got this body that's capable. Like, shoot at me, stab me. Let me use this to protect the ones I love. Let me use this so it matters, so it actually counts for something bigger than myself. And when we find that thing, whether it's signing up for the military, having a family, having a job that you love, it's like We want to put our bodies in the line of fire to feel like we're fully used, so that by the end of our life, we say, I was given, I did it. And it gives us the deepest sense of purpose. And so that reminder helps me and helps a lot of the men that I work with, is if we keep that bigger view, it helps us take every step throughout our day, moving towards an attitude of selfless service and living for others.
I have a question about polarity. I guess a good start question is, what in your eyes, what is polarity in a relational sense?
Polarity is that magnetism, where someone walks in a room and you look and you can't stop looking at them. You see somebody and then your posture and your breath changes automatically because something's happening at a level of interaction that you're not even thinking about. Something pops. And that mechanism for most of us is just kind of like happening and controlling most of our decision making. We don't even realize, like, the club you went to is because she was there or this was happening there. Like, we're drawn magnetically to these things that polarize us, or maybe it's a type of band or music that you love. Like, it does influence the way we move through the world more than we even realize. Polarity is magic. It's a superpower. And for most people, you'll feel it at the beginning in the relationship. Oh, this polarity is interesting. You're so attractive. You're so interesting. I want to get to know you. But once you get into a relationship with that person and you go to bed together, you wake up together, you watch that person put the clothes back on that they had taken off, you see that, and suddenly that fire starts to get neutralized. And there's a neutrality. You start talking to each other like friends or roommates. That mystery of polarity is gone. Most people think that just belongs to the beginning of a relationship, and naturally with time it's going to fade. Here, we study polarity to find out what is it that creates that magnetic charge, and then we actively practice it so that we can have that same level of passion, if not more passion, 10, 20 years in a relationship. So, in short, polarity is attraction, and it can be broken down on many different levels. In fact, my wife and I, we just turned in our third book. It's called The Fire Between Us.
Mm.
And it breaks down polarity into 7 different categories of what he and she can do to amplify that experience of attraction and sexual connection in 7 different ways that it's always taking place. So we go in depth in that book. We'll probably release it later this year.
Mm. I'm very interested to read that, because I know I started reading your book, playing with fire, about being a firekeeper, and this idea of the fire needs tending to. We need to like look after it, tend to it, put energy towards it, time, attention, instead of the old model, or maybe the old model of relationship, which is like the fire's there, and when it burns, it's done, and we're left with ashes, and there's frustration, and there's annoyance, and there's wandering eyes, and even wandering bodies. But actually,
Yes.
the fire is something that this polarity, this fire, this attraction that lives between two people is something that we have agency over. Actually, that's the real term. Actually, really comes is that we have agency over it.
We do. And, the other amazing thing about it is think about how much time you invest in earning money or your purpose, and like count that over the hours of the week. And how many hours are you investing into that fire of intimacy in your sexual connection? For most people, if they haven't been doing this sort of work, they're going to say 0.
Mm.
Well, I guess we have sex on Sundays, most of the time, something like that. But it happens spontaneously, not intentionally. Once you start identifying, like, wow, there's a fire here and it does need tending, the beautiful thing about it is it doesn't require nearly as many hours as your money or your job or your purpose does. You could tend to that fire 20 minutes a couple days a week, 1 hour a week. Like, it doesn't need a ton of time and attention. It just needs quality time and attention. It's the quality of time spent that just brings the two of you back, and you go, I feel seen, I feel love, I feel trust in this dynamic. I feel like we're on the same team. I feel like we can do anything. Amazing. Go back and conquer the world. Go back and do your thing and conquer the world. And we'll meet again next week and you come back as lovers. And so as long as you have that touch point somewhere in your week, it doesn't require an enormous amount of hours.
Mm. And that's what most couples are dearly lacking. And you're not saying this as someone who, because something I've noticed in the polarity circles is many of the teachers are either single. If they're in relationship, then they're in relationship, but very few have children. And that adds a whole new dynamic to this keeping of the fire, that you have this little bundle of chaos and lack of sleep that thrown into your life while running a business like yourself and your partner in London. How, maybe some examples you have is like, how does one tend to the fire while still tending to this beautiful bundle of joy that we have?
It complicates things. It does. It makes it so much harder. And to be in a long-term committed relationship, to make that work on its own is challenging. And so what London and I created in our body of work is we call the 3 ways of relating. Because if we look at it through the lens of polarity, we're either an alpha and omega or omega at any given moment. So if we're both in alpha, we're both in work mode. And remember, London and I write books together, we teach together, we work together, we do taxes together. There's a lot of alpha moments. I need her alpha, she needs my alpha. It's a part of us that is worthy of trust, that can get shit done, and emotions aren't going to get in the way. And we might butt heads while we're in alpha, but it's a critical part of our dynamic. Even co-parenting in moments is going to be alpha, giving direction to your omega child. So we identified and said, okay, these are alpha moments. So when we know we need to be in alpha, we'll be like, okay, we're going to be in alpha right now. We're going to work on the book. We'll go into that mode. We'll butt heads. We'll argue over what the best paragraph is or what we want to say. The moment we're done, like, okay, we're turning that off. And then I'll say, now get over here, and I'll touch or embrace, and I'll bring polarity back in the next moment. Thing that a lot of couples get stuck in is they get stuck in alpha mode. Talking about work, talking about chores, talking about taxes. Then they get into bed. They're on their phones. They're emailing clients. They're talking about work, talking about taxes, talking about children. They kill polarity. Polarity cannot happen in alpha dynamic. So when both of you are in work mode and having those conversations, it's a polarity killer. It doesn't mean you don't have those moments. It means you're aware when they're happening and you're aware when they're ending, and you stop that. So creating alpha was so helpful for us in our dynamic. The other element of our relationship is omega. Omega is when no one's trying to accomplish anything. There's no responsibilities. It's like, let's lay on the couch, rub each other's feet, and watch some Netflix. It's the best friend dynamic. It's like, maybe there's a sharing of our day or our feeling, and no one's trying to fix or solve any problems. It's just omega. London and I have that. I love that aspect of our relationship. We're best friends too. So that's the way of relating of best friends. The thing is, if you have alpha and omega, powerful work partners, best friends, that's pretty good. But it's not going to have hot, passionate sex. It's not going to be tear your clothes off good. You're still going to be looking at porn or other places to get your sexual needs met. So the third way of relating is one person's alpha, the other person's omega. Now you intentionally bring polarity, and we do it through formal practice. So my wife and I will we have a practice room that kind of looks exactly like this room at another part of the house. We only practice in there for meditation and for partner practices. And we'll go and we'll sit in there and we'll do 20 minutes of practice, 40 minutes of practice, of seeing, of feeling, of I want practices, practicing what she could do to turn me on, practicing what I could do to turn her on. We just meet there. And in playing with fire, our daughter, the only time we could do it was at 6 a.m. because our daughter would wake up at 7 and then it's a wrap. So at 6 a.m, we would meet, do this practice, get up just enough time to turn on the coffee maker, and then our daughter's up and running down the hallway, and guess what? We're back to mom and dad mode. And all day we're in mom and dad and work mode. But as long as we had that one touch point every morning where it was just us as lovers, not only was it enough, it was extraordinary. And in playing with fire, we share those moments of practice that we had during that exact period of time in our life. So today it looks just like that. Our daughter's a little older, and so we practice in the moments either when she goes to bed or right before she wakes up are our key moments. But if she's awake, it's a wrap. It's not happening.
But you explain it so beautifully there, right? And so very tangibly in the relationship of, those moments of alpha, alpha, omega, omega, the Netflix, the working together, like mum and daddying. And as you say, so many couples, they get stuck in mum and daddying, working, chilling, and all those things are vital aspects of a relationship to enjoy being together. But that aspect there of the formal practice, the spark, the passion, the fire keeping is something we're never really taught. We've kind of come back to this a few times. We've never really taught how to do this consciously. We assume that when we lie in bed together, get into bed together, that it should somehow magically ignite in the moment. Like we roll over and then sometimes we get into the old scripts, men. I speak to a lot of men who have been running the same script for 5, 10, 15 years. They roll over, they rub a particular type of her back. And actually the script once did have some polarity to it, but now that the script has become old and worn and torn and boring, it lacks it. It's flat. It's like, it almost becomes like it is like a moment of alpha, alpha, omega, omega for the couple.
For sure. Absolutely. And you said it perfectly. It's like we get in bed and we expect it to magically be there. And when it's not for one or the other partner, it's like, what's wrong? There must be something wrong here. It's like, no, you just haven't been tending your fire.
Mm.
And you can bring it back. How are you going to bring it back? Start by seeing your partner. Hey, I see everything you're giving. I see it's been a while since you've been touched in a way that really opens you. I see how much you have on your mind. I see you lying in bed next to me now. And just seeing in a way that this person feels like, holy shit, they're not just lying next to me, they're actually present with me. Oh, that's doing something to me. And then maybe in your next moment, you say, I want to know what you want. How do you want to be touched right now? Where do you want my hand? What do you mean? Just tell me. Do you want it on your leg, on your arm, on your hand? I want, and then suddenly now you're practicing with her. She doesn't know you're practicing, but who's going to turn that down? I get to say what I like. You invite their desire out. Now suddenly you're in this game. She gets her wants met for a while, and then you're like, I want your hands on my chest. Now you guys are playing in this whole new dynamic that neither one of you has even had. It's not the old script. And that's why we do the I want practice, is because the more present you become with your authentic wants, the more you get out of your head, out of the other sex moments you had, or the porn scenes that you've envisioned, or the fantasies that you have. You get out of that nonsense and you just get into your body, and you actually are in a conversation with your body. Body, what do you want now? I want to lay back. I want to feel fingers on my belly. I want my partner's mouth right behind my ear, just breathing gently and whispering this to me. Now your sexuality becomes so much more alive and vibrant and interesting, and something neither of you have experienced before. So that's how we take that mundane moment in the bedroom, and just by bringing a little bit of, I see, tell me what you want, I want, now you're off to the races having a sexual experience that is what it means to be a fire keeper.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful, Justin. I'll start to wrap up there. I could ask a million one questions beyond there, but we'll stop there. Just want to say a huge thank you actually for today, for how we've moved through this so gently. For I feel the depth of practice and presence in you just sitting here. I feel calmer than I did, an hour and a half ago coming in. And I imagine that the listeners now are wondering where they can find your books, where they can find out, how to practice with you. Because I know you yourself in London, you run various groups for people to join. Yeah, and I know you run some in-person retreats sometimes as well, I've noticed.
Yes. We've taken a break from in-person retreats for this year.
Mm,
We've been doing a 5-year for about the last 10 years. And so we decided to put them on pause to finish our new book.
mm.
So we just turned that into our editors and we plan on launching that by the end of the year. So where people can find me is my website, justinpatrickpierce.com. And my wife and I, we have a community on Patreon called Yoga of Intimacy. And for anyone who wants to come and join like a live monthly men's group call, a live monthly women's group call, or a live practice evening where London and I guide you and your partner through these practices for an evening, a Patreon community is where we offer that. So we do the live classes and all the recordings are there. So if you sign on, you can watch all the previous content, guided practices, everything's there in a database. And you can find that at patreon.com/yoga of intimacy.
Perfect. Awesome, man. I look forward to getting my hands on your new book towards the end of the year. Something
Well,
that's
I'll make sure you get a copy. I'll make sure once it's ready, we'll send you a copy.
yeah, I love to read that. It's something that's, post baby, having to tend to that fire is something you have to put a lot more intentionality and consciousness and awareness to. And I know a number of my listeners are fathers, are in the trenches. Some of them are in the really early days of those first few months where even sleep is a bit of a mystery to you.
Absolutely. That's when we wrote Playing with Fire, that was year 1 to year 3 is when we wrote that book during
Wow.
lockdown in
Wow.
California. Those are some gnarly years, but we were practicing, writing, parenting, working. It was wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a different world, man. It's a different world now. Thank God.
Yeah. Happy to be here. Happy to have made it through.
Yeah. Yeah. And listeners, I imagine this is an episode you want to share with someone. There's probably someone in your life who wants to be a better lover, and they come to realize we listen to this. It's not just about what we do in the bedroom. It's about the myriad of things that we do around that, even in our personal practice, but also with our partners and the intentionality we bring. So please do share with a man, share with a woman, who needs to hear this episode and hear Justin's wonderful wisdom. And then I also say, I'm just going to say, if you want to find Justin, there's going to be various links down below around, Instagram, books and so forth that you can chow into. And yeah, I think just finish up by saying a big thank you to Justin for his time, his wisdom, his presence, and a big thank you to you listeners. Thank you for being here. And I will say, ciao, ciao.